Congress people, my name is Jane Matz, and I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm becoming an anomaly in that I don't know anyone personally yet who's been harmed by gun violence. I don't have confidence I'll be able to make that statement much longer. But for the moment, fortunately, I've not been directly affected by the murder epidemic that's ravaging my country, so I can't speak from that experience. And by now, presumably, you're all well versed in the statistics regarding murders and mass murders, and with the arguments for and against gun ownership of various types, and whether any form of gun ownership ought to have reasonable restriction or limitation. On the other hand, portions of the most recent iteration of the debates about gun ownership have played out contemporaneously with us ordinary citizens being given, via the January 6th hearings, a unique window into our government as it has operated in the recent past during the last administration and as it is operating right now before our very eyes. Of that, I do have some direct experience as an observer, at least, and it is from that perspective that I wish to speak. I don't know any of you personally. I believe, though, that there may have been a time when you might have been an idealist, that what animated your desire to elected office was a wish to serve your constituents and to enact the will of your constituents and to be a part of a government that aspired to embody the wisdom and values of its founders. Some of you, however, somewhere along the line, might have been distracted by other interests. Maybe you spent too much time in the halls of power. Maybe you got intoxicated by the privileges of office. That could happen to just about anyone, I suppose. Your compass loses access to magnetic north. You lose your way. You forget how you even got to the voting floor. And before you know it, you're a long way from the idealist you once were. I watched the hearings last week. I saw people testify who maybe didn't realize what they were getting into when they signed on. I saw people testify who might have been looking for redemption. I watched one person testify who made claims that were in direct contradiction of claims he made before he resigned his office. He seemed to believe that we wouldn't remember those earlier statements of his. I'm not sure if that guy knows what a compass is. That testimony reminded me of the worst that is in us all. I also watched the testimony of someone I'd never heard of, but who I've since learned is a conservative icon. Like the earlier example, he's an esteemed member of the legal profession and a former government official. In his testimony to the January 6th committee, I saw sincerity, humility, thoughtfulness, and a deep, deep concern for what has happened to our country and what may yet still happen to it. I was deeply moved by his testimony and by his pleas. He reminded me of the best that is in us all. If you're one of the Congress people who's gotten lost or forgotten why you're there, please take a minute, reflect for just a minute. And when it's time to vote, remember that you have several things to consider. Sure, you have to think about your meetings with your lobbyists, but maybe take a moment to think about your constituents, about the fact that the polls show that Americans overwhelmingly favor gun control. Think about where the country has been taken these last several years, and think about where you want it to go. And if you're capable of thinking only of yourself, then think long and hard about your legacy. Think about what is the worst in you and what is the best in you. Think about what is the legacy you wish to leave, and then vote, and then live with yourself and your legacy.